Hey guys, it's Mr. Schmidt here, and in this video I want to go ahead and go over the answers to question 1 of set 2 of the 2019 AP Macroeconomics free response questions. So before I do that, I just want to clarify this issue of set 1 versus set 2. With some of the shorter exams like AP Macro, AP Micro, AP Psych, one thing AP's done this year with the College Board is create 2 different sets of FRQs. And this is mainly so that students in one time zone can't really give too much help to someone in another time zone about these questions. And so it's something new they're doing this year. I've gone through all 6 questions. I've done 3 videos. I'm going to do 3 more videos with this set of questions. And I don't really notice much of a difference in the difficulty between set 1 and set 2. So if you're looking at the questions and wondering, maybe, you might personally think your set was harder based on, your level of study and preparation or whatnot. But generally speaking, I didn't feel like, as someone who teaches it, that one set was that much more difficult than the other. So let's go ahead and start with this question. The long question, and again, just like any other AP Macro FRQ section, it begins with economic stabilization. So it says, assume the economy of our land is currently operating above full employment, and so we have to draw the ADAS model to show that. So here we go. So we've got our axes, and then we've got Y and PL, and then we've got aggregate demand, short run, aggregate supply. And because we are operating above full employment, we have to put LRES over here to show that we're producing more than we should. So we've got YF, and then we've got our current level of output, Y1, and our current price level at PL1. So that is the setup here. And again, if you could draw this, you're probably going to get a couple of points there. So again, on these FRQs, you don't need to get all the points to do well in the AP exam. You just need to try to get as many as you can. And so that is the setup there, and that is letter A. On letter B, it says, okay, assume the central bank and the government do not take any policy actions. And so this automatically should clue you in that we're going to do some self-correction, automatic adjustment. And so it says, on your graph in part A, show how the economy automatically adjusts, there you go, in the long run, and label the new equilibrium price level PL2. So what's going to happen here in the long run is, because that we have an inflationary gap, we have inflation, which means there's going to be a increased price level, which means in the long run, resource prices are going to become flexible, and they're going to increase. And because they increase, it's going to cost more for businesses to do what they do. And so that's going to move SRES to the left, which is going to cause us to return to long-run equilibrium. And we just have to label this as PL2. And so that is B1. And in B2, we just have to kind of explain this. And so I'm going to give you my explanation here. It's probably a bit longer than what's needed, but just so you get the idea. So I wrote, in the long run, resource prices and other prices become flexible and increase. Therefore, SRES will shift to the left, or decrease, returning the economy to full employment. I almost put unemployment, like that's not right. Employment. There you go. In the long run, so resource prices are going to become flexible, they're going to increase, and then we're going to move SRES to the left, returning the economy to full employment. And that is letter B. When we get to C, it wants us to now turn our attention to fiscal policy. So instead of just self-correcting, what if the government gets involved and does fiscal policy? And the nice thing about C here is that they don't make you explain any of this. So you can do some really brief answers here, which is nice. So for C1, it's just, okay, give us a fiscal policy that could fix this inflationary gap. So we need contractionary policy here. And so one thing you could have written was decrease government spending. Of course, you could have also put increased taxes. That would have worked as well. For C2, it wants to know what happens to the unemployment rate and the natural rate of unemployment. Well, if we go back to our graph here, we're going to notice that if we move AD to the left, which is what contractionary fiscal policy is going to do, we're going to reduce our output level. And when we do that, we're producing less stuff, which means we're going to need less workers to make the stuff, right? And so what's going to happen is that is going to increase the unemployment rate. Okay, so it's going to increase the unemployment rate. Now, if you notice, and again, I'm going to go back, so I apologize, I keep switching back and forth here, but you'll notice here that when we do this self-correction, okay, LRAS didn't move. And you're going to notice here, and I'm going to go ahead and show AD moving to the left here, which that's kind of funky with that curve, I apologize. But if you notice AD moving to the left here, and obviously I would not have, if you were doing the AP exam, do not do what I just did here, but I'm just showing you this for illustrative purposes. You'll notice here that when we move AD to the left to fix it, the full employment output here doesn't change. And because that doesn't change, the natural rate of unemployment isn't going to change either. Because remember, the natural rate of unemployment is how much unemployment we have at long-run aggregate supply. And so the answer here to C2, the second part of this, is that there's going to be no change to the natural rate of unemployment. And then finally for C3, it says, okay, well, we closed that gap with the fiscal policy, but which price level is going to be higher, right? Or not which price level is going to be higher, but is that automatic adjustment that we did in Part B1, is that going to give us a higher, lower, or the same price level as the fiscal policy? And so again, this is just multiple choice here. So if you had no idea what you're doing, just write higher, lower, or same, take a stab at it, and you had a 1 in 3 shot there. So, but to see the correct answer, again, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back here. And this is where we currently are. This dot I'm just making a bit bigger, thanks to the aggregate demand curve shift. And you'll notice here that if I move this price level, PL3, if I show that, this was where we were. This is where we were with the self-correction, right? That's the price level after the self-correction. This price level is the one after the fiscal policy. And you'll notice the PL2, the self-correction price level, is higher. And so that means for C3, the answer is higher. On to D. And so D says, okay, we've got that fiscal policy action. We'll show the impact of that on the loanable funds market. So let's go ahead and do that. So here's our axes once again, and we've got quantity of loans and the real interest rate, and then we've got downward sloping demand, upward sloping supply. And so what's going to happen here is because we have decreased government spending, we don't, as the government, need to borrow as much money, because if we're not spending money, you don't need to borrow to spend the money. And so what's going to happen here is demand is going to decrease. So I'm going to call this D2 actually, and D1, we'll call that supply 1. And so what we had to do here is show that the real interest rate is going to decrease. And again, like I've said in my other videos, you have to show it on the graph. You can't write out to the side, hey, real interest rate decreases, because again, the verb here was show. So the verbs matter on these FRQ questions. And I also need to show my arrow here for the curve shift. So that is letter D. And the last part of this question says, okay, now that we've got this lower interest rate, what is the effect of that on the long-run aggregate supply curve? And again, look at this. It's multiple choice. Shift to the right, shift to the left, or remain the same. Now, unfortunately, we do have to explain, so we can't just write down one of those and be done, but at least they give us our choices. And so the answer here to letter E, and I'll go and call this D. Letter E, the answer here is shift to the right. And so why is that? Well, if we think about this, if there's a lower interest rate, that's going to encourage businesses to invest and investment spending, right? And so some of the things they're going to buy are tools and machinery to get their businesses more and more productive. Well, that's going to create economic growth and move LRAS to the right. So for an explanation, what I put was investment spending on capital goods, that's man-made tools and machinery, will increase due to lower real interest rate. So because there's a lower real interest rate, businesses are going to be like, okay, let's go borrow some money, let's go buy some new tools, some new equipment for our businesses to be more productive, and that's going to cause LRAS to shift to the right. So that is all for this video on question 1 of set 2 of the 2019 AP Macroeconomics free response questions. Until next time, have a great day.